In order to enact the policy proposals that Harris is touting on the campaign trail, she will need a willing partner in Congress. But if Republicans get a hold of one of the two houses, legislating her agenda will be difficult. Joining us now, former press secretary to former House Speakers John Boehner and Paul Ryan, and MSNBC political analyst Brendan Buck. Also with us is the Atlantic staff writer and MSNBC political contributor Mark Leibovich. So, Brendan, this is an idea that you pitched to us. You are worried that Congress, which is already a do-nothing place, will get even worse if there's a Harris president and a Republican Senate.
Yeah, I don't think most people appreciate that for the last 5 presidents, they have all had the trifecta, the White House, the House, and the Senate, when they came in for their first 2 years in office. And that's how so many of them were able to get legislation that they're remembered for. Obviously, Joe Biden passed the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act. We know about the Bush and the Trump tax cuts. Obamacare under Barack Obama. All of those things happened because his party controlled Congress. A lot of them ultimately ended up losing Congress after that. But if you're going to be able to have any type of sweeping legislative agenda when you first come in and you don't control the Senate, it's really out of your hands at that point. And we're probably going to be forced then to look at bipartisan legislating, which is not something we've done a lot of in recent years. And I only say that because Republicans are very favored right now to control the Senate. Democrats have 51 seats right now. They are likely to lose the West Virginia seat almost certainly. And then Montana, another place that's going to be very difficult for Democrats to hold their seat. And right there, Republicans are in charge. There's very few Democrat pickup opportunities. And you may have a Harris White House that can't really do much legislatively right off the bat.
And this is something that feels worse now, and it feels worse for a reason. Only 27 bills have been passed in 2023 so far. The 104th, 112th, I'm sorry, that's last year. I keep thinking it's 2023. Last year, only 27 bills. The 104th, 112th, and 113th Congresses in which Republicans controlled one or both chambers, with Democrats Bill Clinton and Barack Obama in the White House, passed between 70 and 73 laws. Okay, so that's when there was some bipartisan effort to get things done. 23 or 27 bills last year. Brendan, how much worse can it get?
And I imagine most of those 20-something bills are pretty minuscule, small things that don't add up to a whole lot. It's a difficult legislative environment in any situation, but I will remind everybody as well, there are some very important things that have to get done next year. Remember the debt limit? That's coming back next year. And, of course, the expiration of all of the tax cuts that happened under Donald Trump are set to, or a lot of them anyway, are set to expire. And that's going to be a huge fight. So she's going to have her hands full one way or the other. But she may also lack that signature legislative achievement that so many presidents are able to run on. Of course, we don't know if she's going to win. But in the scenario that she does, those first 2 years are usually really critical. That's where you leave your mark. And if you have divided government, particularly, if the House takes over, you can sort of kiss it goodbye. But even with the Senate gone and a Democratic House, it's going to be pretty ugly bipartisan negotiating. And, we can still get that done sometimes. It's just much smaller in scale than we're used to.
Well, I've got a couple questions regarding that. I wonder if because potentially things would not get done in the first 2 years, whether that would boost her chances to have control of Congress for the second 2 years of her administration, if she wins. Historically, we've seen the person at the top in the White House lose control of Congress for their second 2 years of their first term. Maybe this would flip it on its face, Mark.
Yeah, I would say this, though. I mean, this has been a very, very tight split over the last 2 and 4 years, also, both in the Senate and the House. You got the Ukraine deal done. You got this debt ceiling deal done. You got budgets done. You got the inflation reduction. I mean, it actually can be done. And I also think a lot of it obviously depends on who wins the presidential and how big the Senate split is. I agree with Brendan in that West Virginia is effectively lost. Montana could be a real reach. Ohio, I think possibly Texas and Florida could be, long shots for Democrats. But either way, I will say, though, that if Trump loses, the GOP could look a lot different a year from now or even 6 months from now. You could have a very tight Senate split. I think Murkowski and Collins, maybe Tillis, a couple of other Republicans could be not so much radicalized, but actually, what is the word? What's the opposite of
moderate?
Empowered.
Empowered to moderate.
Well, yes, I think if Trump loses, there will be a different energy in the Republican Party, possibly moving back towards the middle, which could look different.
That was exactly the question I wanted to get to, which is that if Donald Trump loses, is it crazy to think that the party might change? I mean, we've been talking about this for a while now, ever since he came on the scene. Mitch McConnell talking about candidate quality. He's lost. He lost in 2018. He lost in 2020. Lost in 2022, or didn't win as much as the Republicans should have in 2022. Is it far-fetched, Mark, to believe that they're going to change, moderate in a different way, become a new party if Donald Trump loses again?
I mean, we've been fooled by this before. I would think that after losing again, after the disaster of the last couple of midterms, after 2020, after possibly losing in 2024, and also, I mean, you thinking about Donald Trump's age and what that would look like, and whatever his legal problems are going forward, you would think that that would be the thing that lets the fever break. But of course, we all remember 2021. We remember 2020. We remember the fever allegedly being ready to break any number of times. So we'll see.
Mark Leibovich, Brendan Buck. Gentlemen, we will see. Thank you very much.